So before something came up, we were interrupted. So we'll be starting right away. For those just joining us, you have not missed anything much. Okay, so I give an announcement before the class started. The announcement is this. In case you are lost or there is something you are not understanding, please don't use that raise hand emoji or type anything. As I'm sharing my screen currently, I will not be able to access your in-chat message, okay? So what you're just going to do is to unmute your mic and then ask your question. But please, for decorum, before you unmute your mic and ask a question, make sure I've stopped explaining what I'm explaining currently, okay? Least I'm explaining something, I have to finish explaining before you should ask your question. But I'll make sure to always ask us if you are following and then give room for questions. So to that, I'll have to continue. What we have today is respiration and reproduction in plants, the very two key characteristics of living things, respiration, reproduction. So when I started earlier, I was telling us that most of us in our school, we are taught the characteristics of living things. We are given an acronym like Mr. Niger D. I don't know if it has changed, but back then in my primary school days, this was what was given for us. Movement, reproduction, nutrition, irritability, respiration, excretion, and then, am I missing anything? Then D meaning death. Now we'll be looking at two key characteristics of living thing. The first one is what? Respiration. Then the second one we'll also be looking at this night is what? Reproduction. Now before I start, I believe our understanding of respiration so far has been hard. Please, if that is your understanding of respiration, you have to drop it this night, okay? Now, what I just did by breathing in and breathing out is called breathing. Okay, that is called breathing. If you want to paint it very well in grammar, you can now call it external respiration. So what is external respiration? Is the process by which organisms take in what? Oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. That is external respiration. And please, if you are not with your pen and paper, do well to get one. Like I always say, I cannot capture everything in a slide. No, you can't even capture every single knowledge in a slide. I will be teaching some things that will not be here. For example, what I just mentioned now is nowhere in this slide. So you should write it down somewhere. Respirations, I will divide respiration into three. First of all, there is something called external respiration. External respiration is the process by which what organisms take in oxygen and then breathe out carbon dioxide. That is external respiration. Secondly, there is something called internal respiration. Internal respiration is the process by which the cells in your body, after you have breathing in, now those cells in your body now what? Take in the oxygen and also release what? Carbon dioxide into your blood. Then the third type, which is mostly general, is what is called cellular
Sir,
respiration.
sir, please, I did not get that.
Am I too fast? Okay, so I'll slow down now. In humans and mammals, respiration can be divided into three: external, internal, and then cellular. So I started with external respiration. External respiration is the process by which what you take in oxygen from your environment and then you release what? Carbon dioxide. Secondly, we have internal respiration. Internal respiration now happens what? Inside your body, internal. It is now the exchange of gases what? Inside your body. External, exchange of gases between your body and your environment. Internal, exchange of gases between your body and your cell. Internal respiration is the process by which what? Your cells take in oxygen and then release what? Carbon dioxide into your what? Bloodstream. But the respiration we'll be looking at generally this night is what is called the respiration we normally talk about in university level is what is called cellular respiration. Cellular respiration. So cellular respiration is the process by which what organisms break down food substances to produce energy. So I want you to, if you learn nothing else this night, I know you're going to learn something, okay? But even if your phone should off now or your data should run out, I want you to understand this thing. Cellular respiration is how you now what food you have eaten into your body that's breaking down to its energy. Cellular respiration. Your cells now what utilize oxygen that you have taken in and use that oxygen through series of chemical processes to break down food. When they break down food, they now release what? An energy currency called ATP. I know I'm too fast. I'll explain again. After you have eaten food, that food you have eaten on its own cannot give you energy. So your body has to what? Break down those food. Now, there is this process of food breakdown called cellular respiration. Now, in cellular respirations, your body what? Utilizes oxygen that it has taken in and then uses that oxygen to do what? To break down those food substances. So you can take this cellular respiration is the process by which the cell breaks down food substance to release energy. Cellular respiration is the process by which the cell or living organisms break down food substances to release energy. Full stop. I believe you have gotten this right. Let me repeat one more time. Is what the entire process by which organisms break down food substances to release energy. Full stop. Now, those food substances can include glucose, fatty acid, carbohydrates, proteins, and what else? Even nucleotides can be broken down as well. All right. So, with this established, now let's look at plants. Like I mentioned initially, external respiration, breathing, gaseous exchange. Now, plants, like every other organisms, require what? Oxygen, require require oxygen, and also receive carbon dioxide. But then there is something else unique about plants. Plants take in carbon dioxide and now excrete oxygen. Hope we are together. In primary school, secondary school, we are taught that organisms take in oxygen and release carbon dioxide. Now, in plants, it is now looking as if reverse is the case. Plants take in carbon dioxide and was breathe out oxygen. Now, let me clear the air small. In case I should call it carbon dioxide, carbon dioxide, please, the two of them are the same thing. Okay, carbon dioxide, carbon dioxide, they are the same thing. So let me continue again. Now, in plants, gaseous exchange occurs in plants as well. The same way you breathe out carbon dioxide, these green plants, they're taking that carbon dioxide to use it and produce glucose. You looked at it in the last class, okay? So, as in the process of production of food substances, that's carbohydrates, plant excrete carbon dioxide. Sorry, plant excrete what? Oxygen. I'll repeat. Plants taking carbon dioxide, they utilize it to produce their what? Food substances. Now, after they are done producing those food substances, one of the byproducts produced is what? Oxygen. So, this type of respiration occurs where? In special structures in the plant. Don't worry, I'm going to explain something else. For those thinking that plants don't take oxygen, as you go on, I'm going to explain something. Please, plants also breathe in oxygen. I don't want to complicate this now. I want you to follow me step by step. So, first of all, gaseous exchange occurs in plants. This point has been established. Secondly, human beings, we have nose, we have lungs, and these are the two things you know for now. I don't know how far you have gone. But then when you talk about respiratory system, it starts from the nasal cavity and then ends in what? For your level, your lungs. But when you go deeper, you now see something like alveolar sac. Alright. So human beings have the nose, they breathe in, and then your trachea, the air moves down your trachea into your what? Lungs. Their respiration of course. But then when you look at plants, plants don't have these special structures. They don't have lungs, they don't have nose. So how do they respirate? How do they exchange gases with their environment? There are two special structures that allows for this. Number one is called the what? Stomata. Number two is called the what? Lenticles. So for those writing, put down this thing. Plants conduct gaseous exchange through two specialized structures. Number one, stomata. Number two, lenticles. I come again. Plants carry out gaseous exchange via through specialized structures. Number one, stomata. Number two, lenticles. You stop. Now, listen, let me explain once more. Stomata is the plural name for what? Stoma. Okay? Stoma. So, stomata. Now, stomata is what? A kind of opening. Stomata is a kind of, let me see if I have a diagram here. Okay? Alright, let me run down this slide. So, go to the next one. Let me just give an overview. So, stomatas are pores on the leaf surfaces that allow gaseous exchange. Lenticles as well are what?
Sir, please,
Small
could you
open.
come again? Sir, please, can
No,
you
don't
come
worry.
again?
Don't worry, I'll come again, okay? I'm just running down this slide. So the next one I will now explain in details, okay? So stomatas are just openings on leaf. Lenticles are openings on the stem, okay? Understand this. Just like your nose is what? Is specialized opening in your head. Whereas your mouth is also what? Specialized opening in your head as well, right? Now, in plant has two specialized openings. Number one is found in their leaves. The ones found in leaf are called stomata. Secondly, these openings can also be found somewhere else. They can be found in the stem. The ones found in the stems are called the what? The lenticles. Now, plants absorb CO2 like I've explained earlier for photosynthesis as they release oxygen. Respiration releases carbon dioxide and utilizes oxygen for energy production. So here is where you have to now pay serious attention. So let's do this class. What is stomata? If you're writing, please write. Let's forget it. Stomata. Stomata are specialized opening found on the underside of leaf. Stomata are specialized openings found on the underside of leaf. Underside, that means under the leaf. Okay. If you bring a leaf now, stomata are not found on the surface; they are found under it. So stomata are specialized opening found that is located what mainly on the underside of leaf. Some plants have on both sides, okay, but it is located mainly at the what
Yes.
underside of leaf. Do you ask any question?
No,
So
sir.
I'm listening.
So we can't see the screen very well. We can't hear you very well.
Excuse me,
The
sir.
image is
Please,
very blur.
the screen is blurred and your voice is
My
not
voice is
that
not
much.
audible. So
It's
sorry.
not audible. The thing is breaking.
All right. Let me find somewhere I'll stay now because it's about to rain where I am currently. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, but it's not clear. One cannot
It's not
even. The
clear.
thing is, yes,
We
one
can see it,
cannot
but it's
read.
not clear.
It's not clear. We can't even read what is written on the screen.
What about now?
It's
Yes.
okay now. It's
It's
clear
okay
now.
now.
Okay, thank you so much for the feedback. Can you hear me now? Am I audible enough?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. I so much appreciate the feedback. That means you guys are actually listening. All right, so I was saying earlier that stomata is what specialized opening on the underside of the. That is, if you bring a plant now, a leaf of a plant, you are going to find some openings under the what leaf. But now stomata are microscopic, so if you want to look it up, you have to make use of a microscope to view it. Please, can you see this slide?
So, yeah, we can see it. Thank you.
All right. So I want to explain something with it now. Now, the structure of a stomata. Please, I'm not about the structure of a stomata. Now, this specialized opening is guarded by two cells. Now, look at the right, you see a diagram. Then you see an opening, and then you see something like two kidney-shaped cells surrounding it. Can you see it?
Yes, sir. We can. I can.
All right. Now, this is the basic structure of the stomata. It is what an opening surrounded by two cells called two guard cells. Two guard cells. Now, what is the function of these two guard cells? It regulates what the rate of gaseous exchange. Now, during the day, when the sun hits the plant, when the light falls on the plant, these guard cells open. They do what? They open. Now, how do they open?
Sir, sorry,
Did you
please, what did you say
explain it?
the gas cell do?
The guard cells they regulate the opening and closing of the stomata. Okay. So during the day, first of all, the stomata is open. At night, the stomata is closed. How? Now, in the day, when the sun hits the plant, the guard cells are activated. I will not explain the process, okay? It's not for our level now. Now, when the sun hits the plant, the guard cells swell up. That is, they take in water. Look at the diagram now. As they swell up, that their C-shaped curve becomes more prominent. In so doing, the stomata opens. Now, as stomata opens, oxygen and carbon dioxide can now be freely exchanged with the environment. Remember, stomata excretes oxygen and takes in carbon dioxide. Okay. Now, at night, when there is no more sun, this stomata they loses that activation. What else they do? They gradually do what? Start closing up. The salary was start closing up. Finally, they become what is called flaccid, and then this opening is what closed. Now look at the two images you are seeing here. One is open, the other one is closed. Are you seeing it?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Thank you. Now I will explain once more. So intomata is responsible mainly for regulating the what opening and sorry the guard cells are responsible for opening and closing of the stomata. During the day, the guard cells they do what? They swell up. As they swell up, they open. But now during the night or when there is so much water loss by the plant, the guard cells they become flaccid and they do what? They close. When they close, there can be no more what? Gaseous exchange through the what? Stomata. Now, I want you to pick very silent points here. Number one, the stomata are surrounded by two guard cells. Number two, the stomata are open in the day and closed at night. Number three, the stomata are what? The opening and closing of stomata is what? Highly regulated by light and then water what? Loss. Okay, so these are the few key points you can take in now. So let's look at lenticles. The lenticles. So what are lenticles? Just like stomata, lenticles are also tiny openings. But now you find the stomata in the leaves, whereas lenticles are found where? In the stem. In the stem, in the branches, in the twigs. That's where you find the lenticles. Now look at this diagram. Okay, did I mention that the stomata is microscopic, right? Now, lenticles can be
Yes,
seen with
sir.
your naked eye. Lenticles can be seen with your naked eye. Just look at this screen now. You will see some small openings. These are the what? The lenticles. So, what do lenticles do? They allow what? Gaseous exchange. between the stems and woody parts of what plant. Now let me explain something. When the plant is in during the day, in the day photosynthesis occur in the day, right? Photosynthesis, light synthesis. During the day, there is so much production of oxygen. Due to that reason, oxygen needs to do what? Be excreted. An organism releases what it does not need, right? If you eat so much, your stomach swells up. Next thing you go to toilet. If you have not eaten for how many days, please, what do you want to excrete? But don't mind me, that's not really how it works in full picture, okay? But now, the content of your stomach somehow determines how frequent you are going to do what? Excrete. If you don't drink in a dry weather, I don't think you have more urine to what? Pass out. But once you are what? Always full, you're always drinking water in a very what? Rainy season, you are likely going to what? Keep urinating. Okay? Now, let's go back to the plants you are studying. During the day, plants produce excess oxygen. So the ventricle is always open. Oxygen is always going out. Carbon dioxide is always coming. But now at night, photosynthesis does not occur. And there is another problem. The tissues in the stem, tissues in the roots, they now need energy. The leaves have no issue. Leaves always have to what? Because they are the house is producing this oxygen. So they are likely going to have some what? Reserve still. Now, what does the plant do? The plant now converts some of the food it has, carbohydrates and the rest. It now breaks it down to produce what? Energy. How? By oxygen. So that idea you have that plant releases oxygen, takes in carbon dioxide. Please, I want you to now modify it somehow. Plants also breathe in oxygen. Plants also do what? Breathe in oxygen. Now, plants breathe in oxygen through the what? Lenticles. Please don't mind my grammar. I'm speaking the way we are going to understand, okay? So plants take in oxygen through the what? Lenticles. So the stem, the twig, the woody back of what plant, they have these openings in them. These openings are always open. Remember, lenticles have two guard cells that regulate the opening and closing. But stomata has two guard cells that regulate opening and closing. But then in lenticles, there are no guard cells. So lenticels are always what? Open. Lenticels are always what? Open. Stomata are what? Can be open and closed. Whereas the lenticels are what? Always what? Open. Now I told us that stomata are found where? In the underside of leaf. Lenticels on the other hand are found where? They are found in the stem and woody parts of what? Plants. So what is the primary function of these lenticels? It allows oxygen to reach where? To reach the inner tissues of what? Plants. Is there any other thing I should mention here? It also allows what? Continuous gaseous exchange in stems. Please, do you have any questions so far?
Sir, sorry, please could you summarize the lenticles again?
All right. So I'll summarize. I'll start from stomata and then I'll talk about lenticels once more. All right. So first of all, we talked about respiration in plants and we are trying to explain the gaseous exchange, how it happens. Now, you mentioned that stomata, they are found in where? In the leaves of plants. Not just they are found in leaves of plants, yes, but they are concentrated. Most of them are found where? Under the plant. Now you mentioned that the stomata is what? Not always open. That is, it can be opened and closed depending on circumstances. Now, during the day, the stomata is what? Open. At night, stomata is what? Closed. Now, who are the dormant that always open and close the stomata? We mentioned who? Guard cells. So guard cells do what? They control the what? Opening and closing of the stomata. Now, we now enter the lenticels. So we now say the lenticels are found where? They are found in the stems and in the woody parts of what? Plants. Unlike the stomata, lenticels are always open. Because they are always open, it means they don't have the what? Guard cells. The primary function of the lentil cell is to do what? To allow oxygen to reach the internal structures of what? Plants. Am I making sense? Are you guys understanding me? So is there any question? So no
Yes, sir.
question.
There's a question. Please, what is the primary function of the stomata? There is question, sir.
I'm listening. Function of
Hel-
stomata to what? To bring
Yes, sir.
in carbon
Ah,
dioxide inside the plant.
Sir,
Are you hearing me?
please.
yes, sir.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. Have I answered your question?
Yes, sir.
So I have a
All right.
question.
Okay. So what's your
Sir, please,
question?
can stomata also be found on stems?
Sorry?
Can stomata also be found on
Okay. No,
stems?
no, no, no. Stomata is found exclusively on the leaves, okay? Stomata is
Okay.
found on the leaves. So any other question? All right, so we'll move forward. Now look at reproduction in plants. Reproduction in plants. Just like even organisms, there can always be asexual and then sexual reproduction. Now, our main focus will not be on the asexual reproduction. Our main focus for this class will be on the what? Sexual reproduction. So I'll brush us through asexual. Okay. So asexual reproduction involves one parent offspring. Okay, it just involves one parent who was producing offspring by cloning itself. That is, you now, I myself now as a human being, I will in some way divide myself into two and then separate from my other half. Then when I regenerate that part I divided, that other half also regenerate the part I divided. At the very end, you now have two what? Prime grades. Are you with me? Two of us will now be what? Two different people. That is asexual reproduction in the simplest of illustration. So this simple idea I gave now, I myself, you can just cut me into two and I'll separate from my other half. This half on its own will replicate and form a full what, young adult. The other part also replicate and what, form a what, full young male adult. Are you with me? There is no exchange of gametes involved and there is no fertilization. Because it's just one organism will now divide, form the other one, form the other one. There will now be two. The genes are identical. There is no time there is copulation, there is fusion of gametes, forming zygotes and the rest. No. Okay. So example of asexual reproduction, you have budding, fragmentation, runners, tubers, rhizomes, name them, okay?
On rock like this.
Hello? All right. Don't worry. The slide will be sent to you, okay? Now, asexual reproduction, one of the benefits of this type of reproduction is what? They are very, very fast and energy efficient. Imagine I myself now. Okay, imagine that human beings can perform asexual reproduction. He's going to go through the stress of paying bride price, marrying, doing what's it called, recession, cooking rice, spending money and the rest. No, no, everybody will just whenever you get you feel like you have enough resources, you go and build your own house, divide yourself into two, replicate and continue life. So it is what? Energy efficient, it saves energy. Now, this type of reproduction is common in what? Low plants. It's very, very common in lower plants. Okay? Or modify plant parts. But that's by the way, that's not where majority of question comes from. What we want to look at is sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction. Now, when you talk about sexual reproduction, we are talking about one thing should enter your mind, fertilization. Whenever you hear sexual, you should know that at one point or the other, there will be fusion of gametes and production of what? Zygote, fertilization. So in plants, Sexual reproduction involves the what? The fusion of male and female gametes. Okay. Sexual reproduction in plants involves the what? Fusion of what? Male and female gametes. Now, what are the male and female gametes? The male gamete in plants is called the what? Pollen grain. The pollens. The female gamete in plants is called the what? Ovule. Ovule. So this fertilization leads us to what is called the what? Pollination. Transfer of what? Pollen grain from where? From the anther to where? The stigma of plant. That is what? Pollination. So when pollination occurs, the next thing that precedes it is what? Fertilization. Don't worry, I'm going to get to those ones too. Just flow with me. Now, sexual reproduction occurs in flowering plants using flowers as their reproductive organ. Fertilization leads to the formation of zygotes and seed development. One of the importance of fertilization is that it does what? It promotes genetic variation in offspring. So, fertilization involves these key steps. Number one, sexual reproduction involves these key steps. Number one, pollination. Number two, fertilization. Number three, seed formation. And the last one is what? Dispersal. So let me go again. When you talk about sexual reproduction, you can sum it up under these four key phases. The first phase is what? Pollination, where you now transfer a pollen from the anther of a plant to either the stigma of the same plant or another plant. Next thing is what? Fertilization. That pollen you have transferred to that stigma, it will start growing down. When it grows down, it meets the ovule, it will fertilizes with it, forms a gamete. Third thing you now see is what? The third thing you now see is what? Seed formation through some processes that that zygote that the fuse becomes what? Seed, and then the remaining ovary forms what? Fruit. And lastly, you now talk about how the plant what? Disperse this what? Fruit to continue the life cycle. So far, is there any question? So far, is there any question? Are there any question?
I want to ask question on the fertilization leads to zygote formation and seed development. Can you explain on it?
Don't worry, I'm coming to that, okay? Do you get a general overview? Alright, so since everyone got a general overview, so we are going to now take a step further. Alright, so before we can continue in our study of fertilization, we have to first of all look at where are these fertilization occurring. Are you still with me? Where is this fertilization occurring? Yeah. In human beings, when you want to talk about reproduction, first thing that should come to your mind is what? Reproductive organs. If you are a female, you talk about the what? The ovary. If you are a male, you talk about the what? Testes, right? Where sperms are produced. Now, in plants to be precise, the key reproductive organ in plants is the what? The flower. So what is the flower? I just explained it. The what? Reproductive organ of what? Plant. So the flower allows for what? Fertilization to take place, formation of seed, and after all these things, you now meet the last phase I also mentioned there, dispersal. So I want us to first of all look at the structure of what? The flower. So just like I mentioned, okay, for the sake of those writing, please draw a list of the surrounding flower. Flower. You see? So the flower is a reproductive organ of plants. The flower is a reproductive organ of what? Plants. You can put in brackets or do it this way. The flower is a reproductive organ of what? Flowering plant. See the color. Alright, so let's survey the structure of the flower. Structure of the flower. To understand position. So we have to understand the main structure of the flower. So now listen carefully. The flower is made up of four parts. Four parts arranged from outward to inward. The first part is called the what? The sepals. If you're writing the sepals, you can call this essential and non-essential parts. Okay, I'm going to call the non-essential part first. That is, let me like to this. Please, everyone should listen. Let me explain once more. If you bring a typical flower now, I have a picture here. Now look at this flower now. A typical flower. There are two parts I'm going to see. The essential part and non-essential part. Non-essential part shows the what? Sepal. Look at this the sepal, non-essential part, number one, and then the sepal, and then the what? Petal. This one right here is the what? The petal. You see it at the petal. Now when you come and zoom into the essential part, you now see the what? The stamen, and finally the carpel. I'm looking for where the label stamen here. Some may also call the dinotion. The carpel can also be called the what? Pastel. So we are going to label our own stamen now. I want you to see how I'll do it. So the stamen includes two parts, the anther and the filament. So there's a filament here and there's an anther here too. So these two, the filament and the anther, these two is what? The stamen. Now when you talk about the carpel now includes the stigma, the style, and the ovary. Platform level. So this must be a mistake then. This thing is not carpel. This thing is stamen. Stamen. You know this stuff. This labeling here is wrong. This is not carpel. This is stamen. Stamen. Just bear it in mind. When I think I'll have to correct it if I was send the video. Alright. So let's go back to what we are looking at initially. So from outward to inward, first thing you're going to see is what? The sepal. The labeling of sepal, the sepal. So what is the main function of the sepal? The sepal protects the flower. So for those writing, let me slow down. The sepal protects the what? Flower. Now, number two, after you have seen the sepal, why I call them the non-essential parts, that even if you pull out the sepals, the flower will still survive. Nothing will happen to the flower. So after this, we'll now move to the next layer. The next layer now, the next thing you're going to find there is the what? The petals. The petals. Are using the labeling. So what is the function of the petals? Now, petals are very, very large most times, and they're also what? Beautiful. Beautifully colored. This one is pink in color. If my rods and cones are not telling me, this petal is was pink in color. It is very big in size compared to the sepal, and it's very small. So what is the main function of this sepal, this petal? The main function is to attract pollinators, to attract pollen agents to come and fertilize the plant. Hope you are still together. Now, after the sepals, the petals, the next thing we are going to see there is the male reproductive organ, the male reproductive part of plant, or the stamen. So the stamen is actually includes two key parts. Number one, the anther, and number two, filament. So the anther and the filament does what? Makes up the stamen. The filament is just the stalk, whereas the anther is where pollen grains mature. Then lastly, you now find the carpel, the carpels. The carpel is what? Female reproductive part of plant.
Sir, please slow
Okay,
down.
all right.
Sir,
Now
please,
I
the
wanted to
function of
mention
that
something for us.
filament,
You're
the
being too
function,
fast, though. Slow down, please.
the function of that filament.
Function of filament. Filament is the stalk. It is what suspends the anther. It holds the anther. And then the anther, the main function is to produce what? Pollen grain. Pollens. Now, the carpel, remember I told us that the stamen is the male reproductive part, right? The stamen is also called the androgen. Androgen. Whereas the carpel can also be called the gynogen. Gynogen. I come again. The stamen can also be called the androgen, whereas the carpels can also whereas the carpels yes can also be called the gynogen. Stamen, stamen, androgen, carpels, gynogen. Alright, so let's move forward. Someone asked the question, right? I should explain pollination and fertilization. Pollination and fertilization is not here though, so you just have to pay attention. It's not what you are looking at today, but we'll explain it either way. Now, we have seen the male and female reproductive parts of plants. Now, in human beings, during sexual intercourse, there is exchange of male and female gametes, right? The sperm and then the sperm cells find their way inside the woman's ovary and eventually fertilizes the eggs there, right? To form a zygote. Now, in plants, that same process, what they call their own sexual intercourse, is known as what? Pollination. Pollination. So what we call sexual intercourse, where a male sex introduces the sperm into the female's vagina to eventually what? Fertilize the egg. Now, in plants, something similar occurs. Now, the male part of plants, called the what? Androgen, has two components, right? The anther and the filament. The anther produces what? Pollen grain, something analogous to male sperm cells. Now, these pollen grains somehow have to find their way and meet the what? Ovary. And meet the ovule inside the what? Ovary. I don't know if I'm making sense. These pollen grains have to somehow find their way to meet the ovule so they will fertilize it. The process of you now transferring pollen grain from the anther, the what, to the stigma is called pollination. So pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from where? From the anther to the what? Stigma of a plant. Here is our structure. So where is the stigma now? So if I should move a pollen grain from here and find a way to drop it inside here, I'll say that pollination has what? Occurred. pollination has what occurred. Full stop. And pollination can have two types: self-pollination and what cross-pollination. Don't worry, I won't go into those parts. It's something you can read up. I want to change the color of this thing. Okay. Now, after pollination have occurred, before we explain further, I have to talk on something. I told us that the male reproductive part, the androgen, has two components, right? The anther and the filaments. Now, the female reproductive part, the carpel, also have three components: the stigma, the style, and the ovary. If you look very well, the three of them are labeled. The stigma here, the style, this tube here, and then the ovary. This is the ovary. Okay? Ovary, ovary style, and what stigma. You don't mind my label. Ovary style and stigma. Now, when pollination occurs, we move pollen from here to here, from the anther to the what to the stigma. Now, after that, the next thing that is going to occur is what fertilization. And for fertilization to occur, this pollen grain we dropped here has to find this way inside here. Okay. Now, inside the ovary, you now have an egg. That egg is called what? Ovule. Some people call it ovule. I'm not an English student, okay? So inside this ovary is the what? Egg. So the process by which these pollen grains you have here, you go down to meet with this egg and fertilize it, is called fertilization. Now, I'm going to break this down in steps, so it's going to make much sense to us. If you are writing, that will be very, very, very fine. Now, do a subheading, write fertilization. I, something like I'll break it down in points, so it's going to flow. After breaking down, then I'll explain. You write let's go with this sentence. Pollen lands on the stigma. Pollen lands on the stigma. This is a general overview. Then I will explain it. Okay, just write. Pollen lands on stigma. I. The pollens germinate. The pollens germinate to form the pollen tubes that grows downward. The pollens germinate to form the pollen tube that grows downward. Then the third thing, this is not a sequential something, okay? I'm explaining what this is something you can write in a paragraph, but I'm giving it to you in points, in bullet points, so it will be easier that way to memorize. I. Then when the pollen tube reaches the ovary, that is the pollen tube reaches the ovary. Write it that way. Pollen tube reaches the ovary. Then the last one, I think I mentioned I. Then IV, that's number 4. Sperm cells travel through the pollen tube. Or don't let me summarize it. IV, fertilization eventually occurs. That's fusion of gametes. Fertilization occurs. IV, fertilization occurs. Full stop. So I gave us 4 steps. Number 1 is what? Pollen grains landing on the stigma, right? Pollen is landing on the stigma. I. The growth of pollen tube. I. The pollen tube now eventually makes contact with the what? Ovary. Then IV, pollination occurs. That's fertilization occurs. That grammar there, I summarize, I think, 3 things. Hello.
Sorry, sir. The number 4, what do you say? Because of network, I know I write it down.
Okay. Sorry. Fertilization occurs. Fertilization occurs.
For the number 4, sperm cells travel through what?
No. I summarized it. Okay. That thing is very long. I was explaining what is not needed for our set now. So just write fertilization occurs. Probably When you go deeper, you now understand what happens there.
Okay, sir.
But no, it's not something you have to write, okay? But I'm going to explain it as well. Let me check our time. Most times, most of us love explanations, but not everything are actually necessary. There are some things you need to know now. But then, for the sake of knowledge seekers, we will do justice to everything. Now, let me explain once more. Please listen carefully. When pollen grains land on this stigma, this is our stigma. These are the pollen grains. When pollen grains land there, they eventually form long tube and they start growing downward. That's number two, right? They start growing downward. And when they make contact with the what? Ovary, when they make contact with the ovary, sperm cells, but should I explain this? When they make contact with ovary, the fertilization will now what? Occur. When fertilization will occur, you now produce your what? Seed. Okay? You now produce your what? Zygotes. Just just bear this in mind. When fertilization occurs, you now produce your what? Zygote. Let's not go deeper. Is is there any question here? Are there any questions here? Any questions? Okay, that would be nice. But for those that still want to know what happened there, maybe at the end of the class, just remind me, I can run down the explanation. But for now, let's just be going ahead. The last thing we have here is fruit and seed structure. So if you look at that sequence I gave us initially, after pollination is the next thing is fertilization, right? After fertilization, the next thing there is what? Formation of fruits. So what is actually a fruit? What is a fruit? When we talk about fruit, what comes to your mind is your favorite fruit. But once you're in class, what comes to your mind is mango. And I don't know why. Alright, so well, we are going to still use the example of a mango, alright? Now, fruit is a mature and ripened ovary of a flower. Fruit is a mature and ripened ovary of a flower. So from this simple definition I gave now, you can deduce that fruits are formed from where? Ovary. Fruits are formed from where? Ovary.
Hello, sir.
Now, what are seeds? Hello?
Please, sir, come make the definition of the fruit, please.
Okay, thank you, no problem. Fruits are mature and ripened ovary of a flower. When you talk about fruit, you are talking about what? A mature ovary. After fertilization, the ovary, that is the outtake, that component of the what? Female reproductive system, you eventually mature and form the fruit. So the fruit is not the seed. These things are two different things, okay? When you talk about fruit, once you talk about fruit, we see every single thing. That whole mango as a fruit. No, the fruit is just the covering. The seed is inside the fruit. So the simplest definition I can give you this night is the fruit is what? Mature ovary. Let's put it that way. The mature ovary of what? A flower. Now, I think we should continue a little with fruit. Fruits, from my definition, you will see that fruits are formed from where? Ovary. Now, fruits are formed from ovary mostly after fertilization or typically after fertilization. There are some exceptions, okay? Typically after fertilization, the ovary now what? Matures to form the fruits. So what is the main function of these fruits? They have one simple function: to protect the seed. To protect the seed. Imagine pepper. Pepper is a if you see the seeds are very small and delicate. It is that whole red structure covering it that is the fruit. Okay. I think pepper is considered as vegetable, right? Don't mind my definition though. But are you still with me, right? Now, if you get your mango that seed inside, the whole mango structure, that whole yellowish, greenish part, reddish part you like eating, is the fruit. It has one primary function: to protect the seed. Now, what is the seed? What is the seed? Okay, let me add one more function to the fruit. The fruit also it also helps in dispersal. It helps in dispersal because if you're a human being, what are you doing with seed of mango? There is nothing. But once you now see the fruit, you can pluck it. After eating the fruit, you now throw away the mango seed. You are now what? Helping in dispersal. Okay, that's throwing away is you are dispersing the fruit so it can grow somewhere else. So the fruit also helps in what? Dispersal. Now, back to what we are talking about. You say that the primary function of the fruit is protect the seed. So what is the seed? The seed is what? The seed develops from where? From the ovary. So the seed does what? The seed is derived from the ovules located inside the fruit. Ovule, what I mean by ovule is OVULES. And they are found inside. So this seed contains the what? Embryo, the endosperm, and the what? Seed coat. The seed contains the embryo, endosperm, and what? Seed coat. So fruit means what? Mature ovary. Seed means what? Mature ovule. Fruit means what? Mature ovary. Seed means what? Mature ovule. Alright. So what's the primary function of the seed? Primary function of the seed is what? It enables dispersal, that's spreading, and germination of the what? Next generation. So I don't think we should go any further, right? We should do. So this is a very simple structure of fruit and seed. Please, are there any question? Do anybody have any question? Is there any question?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me.
Please,
Okay.
sir, please, what is the definition of the seed? Can you come again, sir?
The seed is what? A mature oval. Okay, let me give you please, if you don't have a definition, write this one down. Let me give one down that is comprehensive. The seed is a mature oval containing a dormant embryo, comma. The seed is a mature oval containing a dormant embryo, comma, nutrient reserve, nutrient reserve, then comma, and protective seed coat. The seed is a mature oval containing a dormant embryo, comma, nutrient reserve, and protective seed coat. Full stop. Now, look at this big diagram now. This is you see monocotyledon, a corn, and then dicotyledon, you see a bean. So let's just look at one. This is what the seed. You now see the seed coat, the endosperm. Please, the endosperm is that grammar I spoke there, nutrient reserve. That nutrient reserve there is your endosperm. It contains nutrients. So once this seed wants to break dormancy and start germinating, the endosperm will supply it with what? Energy. Then the cotyledon, I don't think I included this. This is not in your definition, right? You can put it as well if you want. It also contains what? The cotyledon, and then the seed coats that protect it. Okay, so any questions so far? Any other question?
Sir,
All
please
right.
could
So
you
the
show the
practical section.
sir, please could you show the image of the monocotyledon and dicotyledon again?
All right. Okay, so
Thank you, sir.
Sir, you can
lastly,
take
the
it
last
up.
slide. Okay, thank you so much. The last slide you're going to look at today is just a practical session. Please, I want you to perform this. This one is very, very easy. You say wherever you see LS in biology, we are talking about longitudinal what section. So get what get a fruit on a flower. That's what you usually for this. You can buy a fruit flower, you can get any flower you see. Now take a longitudinal section of that flower, just cut it and half. Once you take the longitudinal section, you now be able to appreciate the floral part. Okay. Now, for those that say this end of the class, I think thank God for this. I'll not give up on this one. The structure of the flower we mentioned earlier can also be called the floral part. Some tests can also call it the wall part. That's the WHOR. Okay. So when you get the four floral parts, we're talking about those four parts we mentioned earlier. Number one is the what? I think I have an acronym for that. CCAG. Number one is sepals. Number two is the petals. Number
I
three
can't
is the
hear
angle.
you.
Can you
Your
hear me now?
voice with those
Can you hear
four
me now?
floral parts. Yes, sir. Come again with
All
that
right.
acronomy of the four floral parts. I did not hear anything about that.
The acronym of the four floral parts, if I give the acronym, it means you are going to add some new things. All right. The acronym is CCAG. Double CAG. CCAG. Now, if those that are writing, please go back to where I gave you something. Go back to where we first talked about structure of the flower. Now, you notice from the acronym I gave CCAG, right? But there are no C there. Thank God for those that say to end of the class. I'll now give us double names for every floral part in case anyone is seeing the exam. So the first floral part I mentioned there is what? The sepals. The sepals. The sepals are also called, are you with me? The
Yes.
sepals are also called the calyx. Calyx. CALOY X. X. That is something like xylophone X. So the sepals are also called the calyx. Remember, their function is what? Produce the flower. Number two, second floral part. What you now see is the what? Petals. Petals. The petals are also called the corolla. The corolla. The corolla. Remember, the portion of the corolla is what? Attract pollinators, ants, insects, bees, and the rest. The third floral part is the stamen. I believe I gave us the second name for this, right? I call the stamen androgen. The
Excuse
last
me.
floral part is the what? Sorry?
Excuse me, sir. You said the function of the corolla is what, sir?
Corolla is to attract pollinators.
Okay, thank you.
It's the same thing with what I gave us earlier. Then the fourth one is stamen. Stamen is also called androgen. The last floral part is the carpels. Carpels is also called the what? Gynosion.
Can
All
you
right.
please spell it?
So spell the which one?
Can Johnson.
Sorry, it's gynosion. Okay, gynosion. GYNEOECIOM. GYNEOECIOM. Gynosion. All right. So what's the last thing there? So let's look at the practical section once more. Once you bring a flower, cut it into half, then you can be able to observe these things you mentioned: the anther, the ovary, the ovum. Now, for your fruit, this is where the practical lies. Bring your fruit, cut it into half to longitudinal section. Then you will now see the seed, the pericarp, and the embryo. Or you can bring down your mango seed, eat it till it is white, and have that white hair. Then you can now bake it your teeth. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's class. A very big thanks to everyone that joined. So, any question?
About what you explained about the pericarp and the all those stuff, you didn't explain more deep about it. Like I mean the pericarp, mesocarp, and others. Like there is no clarification on that. Please can you clarify it?
Okay, the endocarp, mesocarp, and all right. So, did I mention it? I did not, right?
You did not.
Okay. So, for those still in the class, I think that's your luck as well. So, if you bring a fruit, the fruit has three parts. You can divide the fruit into three main parts. Hope you are still together, right? So, the outer part is called the apicarp. The apicarp. Apicarp is what? The outer skin. Secondly, you now find what is called the mesocarp. The mesocarp is that fleshy middle layer you normally eat. Succulent. If you bring your mango, the outer part is called the what? Pericarp. The inner fleshy part, once you feel that green or yellow color, you now see a fleshy yellow part you now eat. That's very succulent. Now, after that, you now see the innermost part as well. The innermost part is called the endocarp. So you have the epicarp, the middle, the epicarp, the outside. Epi means outer. Meso is a word meaning what? Middle. Then endo means what? Endo means inner. Okay. So I'll come again. The fruit can be divided into three parts: epicarp, mesocarp, and endocarp. Is that fair? Any other question?
Type of ovaries and others.
No, we are going so far. We are going so far. Type of what?
Please, I have a question.
Okay, so what's the question?
Of a seed. You mentioned seed before, but I didn't get it.
I'm not hearing you.
The function of a seed, the seed that you mentioned.
Function of the seed.
Yes.
Seed helps in dispersal and germination.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
All right. Any other question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, can you please explain the function of the receptacle in that flowery part?
The
Receptacle. You know that diagram that you gave us. So under
okay.
those functions, you gave us stigma, you gave us stamen and styles, but you didn't explain the function of receptacle.
Only that.
Sir,
Hello.
do you
Hello. Can you
understand
hear
my
me?
question? Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay. So the receptacle is the structure. Okay. Is the base. Is the structure that attaches the flower. Are we together?
Yes, sir.
Is what how will I define this now? The receptacle is just an enlarged dome-shaped structure. It attaches the what? Flower. It is the place whereby every other floral plant is what? Attached. And the receptacle most times is not really visible. Okay. but it is always present. It helps to anchor the flower. I don't know if you are hearing me.
Yes, sir.
Let me I've stopped sharing my screen, right? Now, if you look at that image again, the receptacle is just like the base whereby every other floral part sits. It's just like the super glue that holds all of them together. So it supports the entire floral part. Now, one of the things there is that the receptacle is not always visible, okay? It's not always seen. So any other question? There
You
was
said
someone that asked the question that
the
time I told him he
petals
was
is
going.
also the corolla.
Hmm?
You said the petals can also be called the corolla. I mean, the petals is also the corolla of the flower.
The petals here is the same name. It can also be called the corolla.
Okay.
All right. Any other
Sir,
question?
sir, you said you will explain that what is it called in details after the class. You promised
What?
explaining much about that. You said, oh, let me see, I wrote it down. You said you will talk more on that. I think the fertilization
Okay,
that
stage
will
by
be
stage,
after
right?
the.
How it's occurred.
Uh, you say it after the class.
Hmm. All right. So I would love you to pay attention now. I'll explain this. I'll explain this just once. I need to start going back to my this thing and it's about to rain. So after pollination, that is transfer of pollen grain from the what stigma to the what from the anther to the stigma. Now, on reaching the
Yes.
on reaching the stigma, those pollen, how am I even calling this? Those pollen do what? The pollen grain absorbs moisture. The pollen grains now, once they absorb water, they start to germinate. Now, as they are germinating, they form what? A pollen tube. That is some sort of a tube. Now, this tube grows downward through the style. Okay, are you still with me? It grows
Yes,
downward. And
sir.
remember, let me give you an overview so we'll flow together. The female part has the female part, that's the gynosium, has three parts: the stigma, the style, and the ovary. So the stigma is what receives the pollen grain. The style is the passageway for pollen tubes to grow down, and then the ovary houses the egg called ovule. Now, once the pollen grain rests on the stigma, it absorbs water, moisture, and it starts to what? Germinate, just like flower. As it germinates, instead of growing upward, it is growing downward, okay? So when it germinates, it now grows downward. That thing looking like flower, looking like stem that is growing downward is called pollen tube. As the pollen tube is growing downward, it carries, this is what I'm afraid to explain. It carries two male gametes. Two male gametes. Let's call it sperm so it will help our understanding, okay? No, let's stick with male gametes. It carries two male gametes down the style into the ovary. So the pollen tube is growing down, it is carrying the what? Male gamete down it, okay? Now, as it's moving down, once it enters the ovary, the tube now enters the what? Once it enters the ovary, it penetrates the egg. The egg there is called ovule. It penetrates the egg. Should I go this far? Yes. It penetrates the egg through a small pore. I think I skipped this part. I did not mention the part of the seed. There is a small pore in the seed called micropyle. Micropyle. So the pollen tube penetrates the micropyle and enters inside the ovule. And once it enters inside the ovule is where you now find the egg cell. So those two male gametes will now enter inside the ovum. One of the male gametes will fuse with the egg cell and form zygote. The other male gamete will now fuse with another cell called the central cell and now form the what? Endosperm. Oh my god, it's raining. Wow. Are we together? Let me explain once more. The pollen tube will now enter inside the ovum. Once it enters inside the ovum, those two male gametes is carrying are going to fuse with another two gametes inside the ovum. So one male gamete will now fuse with the egg cell and form zygote. The other male gamete will now fuse with another cell there called the central cell and form endosperm. So flowers are said to undergo double fertilization. Wow. I don't know if are you understanding this? Okay, in human beings you undergo just single fertilization where you produce baby. But in plants, it's just like undergoing two fertilization. One is producing baby, second one is now giving that baby lunch box for food. That is providing the what? Endosperm. Do you understand?
Yes, I
Thank you so much.
understand. But the second one, I understand it. But the second one now, it's fusing with what? Because one fused with the oval. The second one fused with what?
It fused with central cell. That's the cell called the
Okay, the
central cell.
central. Okay, central cell. And
Yeah,
that
it
one
fused
now
with central
form
cell.
the which form what?
Endosperm. The
Endosperm. Thank
endosperm.
you.
No problem. All right. So I think this brings us to the end of today's class. So thanks to everyone that participated.